Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to do something a little bit different. In this video, I'm going to react to an article that I read earlier on Bloomberg talking about how millennials are falling behind baby boomers as far as building wealth. The article was about millennials running out of time to build wealth. The article talks about how millennials today are reaching 40 years old and at the same age of their parents, or also known as baby boomers, we're only 80% as wealthy as they were at the age of 40. So we're going to go through this article together and I'm going to react to it and kind of give my thoughts on the different points that it brings up. And then at the end of the video, if you're one of the millennials that are behind on creating wealth, then I'm going to give my thoughts on some of the ways that you can create wealth, catch up, and even exceed the expectations of what you should be at the age of 40. And for anyone watching that doesn't really know what the definition of a baby boomer is or a millennial, a baby boomer was born between 1946 and 1964, and there's about 72 million of them in America today. And a millennial was born between 1981 and 1996, and there's about 72 million of us in America today. So with that context, let's jump into the video. Let's start reading the article now. Okay, so just starting out, you can see the very high level points that they want to bring up. A year of college is $24,600 for a millennial at age 40 versus a boomer only had to pay $10,300 for a year of college. And anyone that went to college or thought about going to college knows how much it does cost to go to college nowadays. It's not as cheap as people like to make it seem because you can be hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, especially if you become a doctor or a lawyer or any of these higher fields that require 6 or more years of college or education. So later in the article, we're going to get more in depth on this part as well. Okay, moving on. Own a home. So this is fairly close, but you can see there's still a 5% gap between millennials and boomers at the age of 40. And this is something that, especially today, you can tell that the market is going crazy. So every year houses get more expensive, yet wages have really relatively stayed the same. And that goes on to the next point of the cost of a home. You can see that the cost of a home was $328,000 for a millennial, and the average for a boomer was $216,000. So that's about a 50% increase for a millennial versus a boomer. And when you add that with the college costing more than 2.5 times as much, it makes it harder and harder for millennials to get ahead. And going on to net worth, you can see there's a $20,000 gap. We're going to talk more about this later in the article, but one of the big factors is that boomers are living longer than ever because of the advances of medicine and everything, and that's great, but that means that millennials aren't inheriting money as quickly as boomers did in their time. And then the last point here is 14 versus 70% own a stock. Again, this doesn't seem like a lot, but one thing to keep in mind is a lot of this has to do with 401ks. Less and less jobs are offering 401ks, and millennials are stuck in a lot of jobs that don't offer 401ks. A lot of baseline kind of jobs like working at Starbucks or any of these other jobs. So boomers had a much higher advantage of getting invested in the stock market from a younger age, so now they have a much larger income from their 401k to live on. But I'm going to share later in this video how you can catch up whether you have stocks today or not. Okay, so let's move down the article now. So you can see in the article it starts off saying that millennials at age 40 in the US are almost in every case doing worse than boomers were. Millennials today have more debt, especially student debt, than ever before. So that added into the increasing cost of homes compared to wages has really made it more difficult for millennials to start owning a home earlier in life. And you can see here it talks about the post-COVID economic boom being one of the last opportunities for millennials to build money before they go into retirement. But I would say that if you're 40 years old or younger, there is still plenty of time that you can make sure that your future is invested wisely. And now as we scroll down to the next part about the income, wealth, and debt, you can see here that debt has increased every single year for millennials while wages stayed the same, and because of that, our wealth has gone down steadily as well. And going down here, you can see the story about this guy that's age 40, bought his first house when he was 40, and this was much later than his parents bought when they were in their 20s and 30s. And that just shows how the economy has not been working for millennials the same way it did for boomers. Moving down in the article more, we talk about how millennials saw 3 major recessions in their first 40 years of life, and that also played an impact on wages not increasing as fast as they should have. Because during recessions, typically wages will stay the same or go down some. And retail has especially seen it hard over the last 10, 15, 20 years. As you've all seen, retail stores are closing faster than ever. And I saw a report that said that most major retail stores will likely be closed within the next 10 or 15 years. So these are stores like JCPenney, Sears, Circuit City, all of these kinds of stores that existed 20 or 30 years ago are going out of existence because of new companies like Amazon and other stores that make it cheaper and easier to buy the things you need. So there's also been a great shift in skill set that's been required as well. Obviously, in the last 10 or 20 years, everything has been going digital, so tech jobs have been taking off like crazy, while retail and other jobs like that are being replaced by computers and other machinery. But now moving down to student debt, this is one of the biggest differences that you can see between millennials and baby boomers. Let's take a look here. Okay, so boomers at the age of 40 had very little education debt. Only under 11% of their debt was education debt. Instead, they had mortgages and credit card debt and vehicle debt. Now, if we go look at millennials over here, you can see that debt for education has risen significantly, where it's over 33% of their debt, while the others have relatively stayed the same. And student debt is so easy to get, but it's nearly impossible to get rid of. I've heard of people in their 60s that are still paying for education as well. And this article just talks about someone that didn't even get a degree, but 20 years later, she's still paying for student debt. And that's just so common all over the country. So many people either graduated with an undergraduate or didn't graduate at all, but still have significant student debt that's stopping them from moving on in life and buying a home or doing other things that they'd like to do, like have kids and things of that nature. I never went to college, but now I'm a software engineer making a very solid income. A lot of jobs you don't even need a degree for. Back when boomers were going to college, they required degrees for almost everything. But now with the internet especially, so much can be learned online that you can apply into jobs for the future. The other thing is there are a lot of trades like becoming an electrician, becoming a plumber. A lot of these kinds of trades pay really well, and you don't need a full college degree to get that. You just need, in many cases, a 1 or 2 year program that will allow you to start making 40, 50, or even more per hour. And I know that a lot of people in these trades make really good money and they don't have any college education. So moving on to home ownership, a lot of economists predicted that millennials would avoid buying homes after the 2008 market crash. That wasn't true, but home ownership rates are still lower than boomers' home ownership rates were. And of course, one of the main reasons likely for this is that housing prices have gone up by more than 50% and even more in some areas, especially bigger cities. And if you compare that to wages have only increased by about 20% in that same time period. So income to expenses don't really line up if you look at that. And another factor for millennials not being able to buy a home is that they don't have enough money saved up to put down on a down payment. This is another big hurdle that a lot of millennials are facing. Luckily, there's a lot of states, like I'm in Massachusetts, and there are a lot of programs that will help people that make under a certain income, help people with down payment assistance. So this could help a lot of people get into home ownership. However, that does come with some hurdles and some restrictions as well. So there's not really a great way for the regular millennial to get into home ownership unless they have enough money saved up and have a decent career going on. And of course, the real estate market now is hotter than ever and prices are higher than they ever been before. So this is only going to add to the pain for millennials getting into a home of their own. But let's move on to the last point, and that's the net worth gap. As I mentioned, millennials are about $20,000 behind in net worth at the age of 40 compared to baby boomers. And like I said before, this is in part because baby boomers received an inheritance much younger in their life than millennials will, because of the fact that baby boomers and everyone in general is living longer than ever. But that's not the only reason. Another reason is that home ownership has been so hard for millennials to get into earlier in life that they're not building up equity in their home. Instead, they're throwing their money into rent, which adds no value, no net worth at all. So that just creates one more hurdle for millennials increasing their net worth. And so that's pretty much the article. The article just goes on to mention how they think you can catch up. However, I have my own thoughts on how you can catch up with building wealth. So how do you catch up on building wealth? Well, one thing with me is I didn't go to college. I didn't come from a family with a lot of money. I came from really nothing, and by the time I was 22 years old, I was able to buy a multifamily property in the Boston area. This is what I used to house hack for several years, where I was able to live in one unit and rent out the other unit for covering most of the mortgage payment. This allowed me to start building equity early in life, as well as being able to take that money that I would have been spending in rent and saving most of it, because my mortgage payment was being mostly covered by tenants, and then putting the rest into building equity in that property. So several years later, the property has exploded in value. My net worth has exploded alongside with it. And that's because I got invested early on in the real estate market. Now, whether you get invested today or next year or over the next couple of years, the same will happen for you. As long as you get invested in real estate and do it wisely, I feel like real estate is one of the simplest, easiest ways to start building wealth. And this is because real estate prices always go up long term. Coming from that article, a lot of people are saying that you can't afford a house, so how can you get invested into a house? So that goes back to career. As I mentioned, I didn't go to college, but I was able to create a career in software development on my own using the internet. Now, this will not work for everyone, but my point is that there is something out there for everyone. There is a skill that you know or that you could easily learn and you would love, that you could learn and make a good income from. Whether it's software development or design, or it's in one of the trades in construction or plumbing, electrician, one of these fields you can really make a lot of money from. And as long as you take this money that you earn, and then as long as you create a budget and stick to it, so you're able to save a certain amount of money towards a down payment for a house, and then this will help you build wealth over time. So at the end of the day, it comes down to, are you good at saving? Are you learning a new skill? Are you working an extra job to help get ahead? These are all things that can be very temporary, but will be very impactful going forward in your life. Work harder now so that you can start building wealth earlier on, so that will create a snowball effect in your wealth creation. And I have many videos on my channel that talk about house hacking and other ways to create wealth, how to budget, how to set goals, and all of these things to help you create wealth in your life. So make sure to check out my channel and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content. I hope this video was helpful, and if it was, definitely like the video down below, comment, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.